Welcome to Maldorma TV. I'm Tobias Alber, and this is episode number 9.
And I am Magnus Alber. And in the previous episode, we talked about a journey where we first covered Tobias' part of it. And today we're going to cover my part of it, because we had kind of different experiences. So we decided to split that journey into 2 parts. Usually we often experience pretty much the same thing, but not this time.
Yeah. The previous experience, or the experience I had, was Martinez explanation, basically.
Yeah.
These different layers of consciousness, or the different layers that consciousness travel through.
Yeah. We talked about how consciousness do this kind of evolution.
Yeah.
Through first the unconscious part, through the physical world, and then we reach a point where we realize what we are and become conscious, cosmic conscious, as Martinez called it. And then the evolution actually continues in the spiritual world. Even though you know what you are, you still have to evolve to the perfect divine state.
Yeah. So it's something I think we should look forward to, this coming awakening of mankind.
Yeah, we have had glimpses of it.
Yeah.
And just these tiny glimpses have been truly mind-blowing, and I would say 10,000 times more fantastic than the happiest moment in my physical life.
Yeah, it's, something that one of the experiences, or just one of these experiences, will be enough to just make you change your life or your worldview directly, instantly. It's such a powerful experience once you have this, kind of mind-blowing.
Yeah, and as I said in the previous episode, Tobias told his story about what he experienced. And now we're going to go into what I received during this same journey that we talked about in the previous episode.
Yeah.
And as we said in the previous episode as well, that from this journey and forward, the experience has kind of shifted towards being experiential to more getting more information and receiving messages from the spirit world.
And I think that's kind of fascinating. I mean, this is when it really opened up, when we really got this just mind-blowing information basically from these beings. It's it was amazing.
They started to explain how our consciousness works and things like that, and we're going to dive into that to some extent today. The beginning of the explanation, at least, it just became more and more deep and fantastic from my point of view, at least.
Yeah, and what I think is really interesting about this information that we have received, it's from my point of view, I haven't studied that much spirituality at the time, so it was quite interesting that the information that we both received was in line with what other people have teached out throughout the years. I mean, all the spiritual teachings, it is in line with what you can read over there, what other people have received.
And the explanation for that, of course, is that the truth have been out there for quite some time, and this was partly as confirmation of all the truth that have been circling around for ages.
Yeah.
But there's also a lot of new stuff that I have never encountered before that is really interesting, especially when it comes to what consciousness and the self is and how it works and all of that. So
I think a lot of the information that is available out there isn't explained in a modern day language. I think that is a lot of the problem. So the information might be out there, but it's not explained in a really good way, I think. And I think that's something we have received, something very modern look at it.
And I also noticed that when I have got a piece of information from the spirit world, often I encounter it in some kind of spiritual literature afterwards, or just as they kind of give it to me and then give me confirmation about it later on.
Yeah, it's like synchronicities.
Yeah. So, but I think we're kind of got used to it.
Yeah.
And accepted it. That's the way it is.
Yeah.
So anyway, this in this journey, it started off kind of light for me. I didn't really get in contact with the spiritual world immediately, but it was as if I had a small channel to the spiritual world, and I was downloading small bits of information.
Yeah.
It wasn't like it was being talking to me that I have experienced so many times later on, and also a few times before this journey. But I was downloading small pieces, and the first piece that I got during this journey was this beautiful quote. They said, "To find God, follow what is beautiful. To be God, see that everything is beautiful." And what I meant with it is that when you start your spiritual journey, follow what you find is beautiful, what gives you inspiration and put you in the state of awe.
Yeah.
It could be you follow music that you find beautiful, or spiritual teachings that you find beautiful, people, nature. But the more you evolve on your spiritual path, you will see that you will find more and more things beautiful and like divine, and eventually you will include everything in that. And when you see everything as beautiful and divine, that's when you have God's eyes. That's when you have reached the point where you are basically God.
Yeah. I think when you say see that everything is beautiful, I just think back about the experience I had when I had my awakening.
Yeah.
That's the thing that I saw during that 1 week.
Yeah.
I saw the divinity in everything. Everything looked beautiful. Like even my old ugly couch was beautiful when I looked at it.
Yeah, and an ashtray, or whatever.
Yeah, everything. And I think it's the same thing with psychedelics. Once you go into the psychedelic experience and really transport your consciousness to this higher state of consciousness, everything you look at will look a little bit more divine.
Yeah. And when you have God's eyes or perspective, you will see that even evil people are beautiful in the way. They're just lost, and you love them for what they are. But the meaning of this quote that I received was that in the beginning, before you can see everything as beautiful, go for the things that really inspire you.
Yeah.
Because that will make that quality in you grow, and you will take in more and more into what you perceive as beautiful.
Yeah.
So you should follow the things that really inspire you, basically.
I think that's a great quote, because once when you have these kind of experiences, when you are in the presence of beauty, for example, if you're standing out under the stars and it's just a perfect evening and it's just a beautiful moment, there's almost like you can feel a higher consciousness when you're in this beauty.
When you experience situations that put you in the state of awe, that's really you are getting in contact with your divine spark, you could say. And the more often you do this, the more you establish yourself in that state of mind, and it will grow and take in more and more aspects of reality in it.
I just remember the first time I saw the deep space photograph. I think it was a famous photo. I think it's called deep field or deep space.
Okay, I don't know what it is.
It's when they first just pointed the Hubble telescope on what looked like just a black spot.
Yeah.
And they was just bringing in the light from this single spot.
Okay.
And when they got the result, they saw, just a huge amount of galaxies and everything. And you could really, for the first time, I think, get an understanding of how just vast the universe actually is. And I remember when I watched that photo, there was a feeling, like you said, when you follow what is beautiful, you get a certain feeling. And that's what I received when I looked at that photo. You get a feeling of that there is something bigger. Yeah. There is something far more, I don't know.
There's more out there than what it looks like at the first glance, basically. So that was the first message that I kind of downloaded from the spiritual realm during this journey. And then I started to think about alchemy. And in alchemy, the goal is to produce something that is called the philosopher's stone, and legend says that if you eat the philosopher's stone, you will be young forever. Will become immortal and you won't age and you won't become sick and things like that.
Yeah.
And me and my friend, we had actually been quite interested in this field for a while and studied it as a hobby mainly. And now when I had contact with the spiritual realm, I asked them about, well, is it possible to produce the philosopher's stone? Is it real?
Yeah.
But I didn't answer my question because they said something else. Instead, they say, don't bother about, trying to become immortal. That's unimportant. So they never said it was not possible, and perhaps it is, perhaps not, but it doesn't really matter because I was quite firm on don't try to live forever. That's actually going against the divine nature of things. Because then they gave me another quote where they said kind of, every experience that you encounter, take part in it, enjoy it, and then let it go. And this includes your body.
Yeah.
Because the divine state, the divine way to experience creation is to just let it flow by. Don't hold on to anything. That's actually going against the natural way of experiencing.
Yeah.
And as soon as you try to hold on to things, that will create suffering. Because as Buddha said, nothing lasts. Everything in the physical world or experience even in the spirit world, nothing lasts. Because we talked about this in the previous episode, the experience must forever change. It has to flow like a river, because if it's static, experience is change. That is what it's movement.
And that's the way we evolve as well. We need to have these different experiences in order to evolve. And I think I agree. I don't think it's meant that we should stay in this physical body forever. That's even if we could. I don't think that's the way it should be.
And they told me that let the body age, and when it dies, just let it go. You will have another body in your next incarnation that will give you a new experience that will be greater, and you will learn a lot of more things than if you would have stayed in the same body forever. So they were quite firm on this. Don't hold on, not even to your body, not even to this life. Let it go, just meet, and you will feel when it's time to go. And that's the thing with all kind of experience. If it's a relationship, if a relationship breaks, it was meant to happen. Let it go. See what's ahead instead. Don't look back and feel bad about the past. Just be here now and take and enjoy what's given to you, and without attachments. That's easier said than done, but that's the way we must learn how to live.
Yeah, and I think if you look at it from, every experience has to come to an end, but when that experience ends, there's a beginning of a new one. So, you shouldn't attach yourself to those ideas. And I think it was the Dalai Lama who said, when asked about dying, and he said, well, that's absolutely fine. Now I'm getting old. It's quite good if I die. I get a new body, much healthier body. This one is starting to grow old. I was having trouble moving around, not as fast as I used to be. So it's not that bad. I'm reborn again. I get a new body. That's fine.
And I know Buddha also said that attachment, clinging to things, creates suffering, because nothing really lasts. And we talked about it in the previous episode as well, that everything is actually kind of an illusion, and it's only when we really think this is real, and that if we lose this, when we're unconscious, we don't actually know what will happen in the future, and that scares us. But so we are actually scared of what might replace this experience. But if we trust God, trust in the universe, and trust that something new and better will come, that's the way it's gonna flow. That's the if you have that approach, that's how life will unfold.
Yeah, and I think the common belief is that we are our bodies, and
Yeah.
I think that creates a huge problem
Yeah.
because that makes us really, we do everything to stay in the body.
Yeah.
But I mean, if you change your mindset, if you come to the realization that you are not your body, then
Yeah.
the body is not a big thing anymore. You can
Exactly.
let it go.
Yeah. And so what happened next? This kind of these messages was, I kind of downloaded them. I didn't feel a direct connection to an individual on the spiritual plane, but then they kind of took contact with me and talked to me directly. I could hear their voice talking to me.
Just have to mention, it's kind of funny when it starts happening. You can almost feel when the channels starts to build up, or I think you mentioned the spine, and you start twitching, and you just kind of like you're getting into position, and when everything opens up, this channel just starts begin to talk to you.
Yeah,
it's
and
interesting.
It kind of, for most part, it kind of sneaks up on me.
Yeah,
and suddenly I think it's my own thoughts, and then I feel the thoughts are kind of forming by themselves, and I'm downloading these messages, and and then it's quite clear that it's someone else controlling it, and so that's how it all usually works for me anyway. So what happened after this, I started to have a very uncomfortable and unpleasant experience, much like the one you talked about in the previous episode, where you talked about how you in the back of your eye could see this nasty worms or snakes or whatever.
Yeah, the snakes, and there's also like shadowy figures that I really couldn't see, but felt like there was negative beings in the nearby. Yeah.
So what happened during this for me, and perhaps this was exactly the same time as you, I don't know.
Yeah.
We usually are quite synced. Anyway, I think my first messages was actually before you had tuned in. I think I was quicker than you this time to tune in. So perhaps we were kind of synced with this uncomfortable zone that we both encountered during this journey.
Yeah.
But what happened was that I was in the at the side of my inner vision. I saw some kind of spiders crawling. I was thinking, what hell is that? And they were kind of nasty, and I felt really uncomfortable about these insects moving around there. I think, what is this? And I thought, well, I'm not going to be afraid about it. I'm going to look at it and see what the hell is this, and confront it. So I looked at it, and it was kind of worms, and it wasn't really any insects or parasites that I had ever seen in the physical. And then the spirit being started to talk to me and said, well, what you're watching now is kind of spiritual parasites.
All right.
They don't have a physical manifestation like parasites in the physical world, but they are animals from the animal kingdom, but they live at another plane of existence. So they are not spiritual in the sense that they are highly evolved. These are just as, physical parasites, but we can see them, and they feed off negative emotions on humans or animals.
Okay.
And they told me that when a person is depressed and have negative feelings such as fears, sadness, these parasites cling to that individual and feed off that energy, that negative energy, and actually enhances this energy.
Okay.
And makes it stronger. It kind of pulls that individual down even further in its misery. Yeah. And this can happen to, especially if you are very vulnerable and quite sad and afraid. They can come and kind of grab a hold of you, and you won't know it because we don't see them physically.
Yeah, but I mean, if you are depressed, I mean, I've gone through it earlier stages of my life. For example, I mean, if you feed a negative thought, what you're saying is that like these negative parasites feed into that negativity, and attach themselves to your negativity.
Yeah, they eat of it. That's why they actually get their energy from.
Okay.
And I know this sounds strange, but this is actually not something new. This is known in many cultures, especially in older cultures. They talked about this, and often they are called demons.
Yeah, and I mean, even if they are real or not, it's symbolic of what happens. I mean, on how it is. Once you go into a
Well-
depression or negativity, you can almost feel like there's a spiral where you just going further and further down.
Well, actually, they are real in this sense as we are real. I mean,
Yeah,
we have physical bodies. Animals have physical bodies.
yeah,
They are just the same. But in the end, all of it is an illusion,
yeah.
including them and us. So they are just as real as we are,
All right.
or unreal, if you like.
Yeah,
They actually showed me that in reality there is only one self, and we are all the same. We are all one consciousness. So you are actually creating these, and you are these parasites. They are physical manifestations of your fears and negative feelings, basically.
yeah,
But they have an individual experience separate from you. They are conscious, as I understood it. So, and they said that, well, these parasites are actually what have been called demons from time to time and things like that. And they are, when they showed me how in nature-based religions, all shamanic religions, they knew about these, and psychic people can talk about these kind of parasites from time to time as well.
yeah,
Here in the West. But they told me about, especially in nature-based religions and shamanistic religions, the shamans do rituals to get rid of these parasites.
yeah,
And they told me that actually not necessary, because the only thing you need to do to get rid of them is to change your mindset from a fear-based, depressing one to a positive. And these beings will no longer, they will not be able to feed off you anymore, because you don't have those feelings. And it doesn't. So it's just the only thing you have to do is to shift your emotions and try to get rid of the negative emotions and go into a positive state of mind, and they will immediately go to someone else and feed off their energies.
Yeah, and I think it's important. I mean, this is probably going to sound, people who are depressed, when you tell them this, it's I know it's very hard to hear, but
Yeah.
when you say that, I mean, depression is a choice, a little bit. I mean,
Yeah.
there are circumstances which can make you depressed, but it's ultimately your choice if you become affected by these circumstances. So you have a choice if you want to be depressed or not. I mean, it's hard to say it like that, but in the end of the day, that's
happiness is a choice, but it's not always an easy choice to make.
No.
And it has a lot to do with ego and feelings of unworthiness, and you feel like a victim, the victim role that a lot of people embody, and that's not easy to get out of. So but in the end, if you really analyze it, it is actually a choice.
Yeah, I mean, that was what it was for me, at least. I mean, when I was depressed and suffering for so long, ultimately it came down to I don't want this anymore.
No.
And I just shut it down, and I decided I'm not going to be depressed anymore. And that's when it started changing. You really need to make the decision.
But the beings continue to talk about this with shamanistic religions, that when they use their rituals to get rid of the parasite, it actually worked.
Yeah.
Because what happened, even though they did not know this, was that when the victim was in this ritual, the ritual actually changed that person's mindset.
Yeah.
Because the victim thought that, well, this will heal me. And kind of placebo effect, basically, that, okay, it healed me and now I feel better. But it was only a choice. The choice to believe in the ritual that would make. So the being told me that rituals are absolutely obsolete. You don't need them. We are evolved now, and we can understand that we don't have to do any rituals. The only thing we have to do is change our mindset, and it will change like
take
that.
Control of your consciousness.
Yeah, take control of your consciousness, because you're basically letting these beings in when you are having these feelings, and they're not dangerous. Well, they enhance the bad feelings, but as soon as you change your course, are going to disappear. And they also told me that there are actually bigger parasites on a global scale as well. The collective fears of humanity invites bigger parasites that are feed of the collective fields as well. And I understand that this is perhaps too much to take in for some people, but that's what they were telling me. And the physical manifestation of this is, of course, corporations and governments that destroy our planet and things like that. They are kind of manifestations of our collective fears and things like that. And there are also big spiritual parasites. And when we change, these problems will go away by themselves. These corporations will fall apart, and governments will fall apart and just vanish.
That's why I think it's the most important thing that you can do, or the biggest contribution you can do to society, is to work on yourself, to get rid of your fears. That's how we collectively, if we work collectively with ourselves, we go inwards and we get rid of our fears, the end result, the outer result will be a more positive one. Yeah.
There's this famous quote, I don't remember who said it, it could have been Gandhi, that if you want to change the world, start with yourself.
Yeah.
And that's really true, because when you change yourself, you take away a chunk of the negative force from the collective.
Yeah.
And the more people that do that, it will fall apart, basically. So work with yourself. That's actually contributing to the whole. So that was another message that I got. And they also told me that physical illnesses are part of this as well, that fears of, like dying, or especially fears of letting go of the physical, that we are attached to the physical, to our bodies. We're afraid of dying because we don't know what's going to happen. We're afraid of all kinds of things in the physical. This will create illnesses of all kinds. Yeah. The ego will create illnesses that strengthen our attachments to the physical.
Yeah.
Basically.
And I think, a lot of the physical harm that you have, it can be, through science as well, be shown that having being depressed and being stressed can result in physical harm as well.
Yeah.
So,
for instance, if you have a fear of death and go around and have a fear-based life, that may actually invoke a disease like cancer, where your fears are actualized and you become even more afraid, and it's just a downward spiral. And so our mindset affects our physical body. Yeah. Because our physical body, I will go into this in a later episode, is a direct expression of our consciousness. It's a physical manifestations of how our consciousness works, basically. Yeah. So what you are in your consciousness will manifest as will have a physical representation. That's the way it is. And they also told me that there's a lag from the spiritual to the physical. So if you change your mindset, the physical illness will not go away immediately. It will stick along for a while before it leaves. Yeah. And there's a reason to that, why this lag is there. And we don't need to go into that really, but it has to do with that it could have disastrous consequences if our consciousness manifested its fears immediately. Yeah. That could be quite disastrous. Yeah. And this lag will disappear when we go from unconscious to conscious. Because when you're conscious, you won't create any disharmonious situations. Yeah.
So but you're not allowed to have this instant manifestation until you're ready for it.
No. So as long as we are unconscious, this lag will be with us. And even when we wake up. Yeah. And as long as we're left here in the physical world, we will have to live with this lag. But you don't mind when you're awake and enlightened. But as soon as you die, you will leave the physical world, because you have kind of graduated out of the physical school, so to speak. Yeah, so that was another of the things that I got. Then they came to the thing that I really was interested in.
Yeah.
The last message that I remember when they told me this, I was so excited because I thought it was really cool at least. So what they talked about later was that they showed me how, well, first of all, you have to understand that we're all one. We're all part of one consciousness.
Yeah.
And this consciousness has 3 different parts constantly.
Okay.
So the consciousness, we can call this the big consciousness for God. That's God, the consciousness that is everything and knows it.
Yeah.
So, and this consciousness have one part of itself that is unconscious.
Right.
So the conscious part knows about the unconscious part, but the unconscious part does not know about the conscious part.
Yeah.
And we are the unconscious part. We in the physical. We are fragments of the big consciousness who have forgotten
its true nature. Yeah.
its true nature. And the reason we have forgotten is because you can't be conscious if there isn't something that is unconscious. It has to be this polarity.
Yeah.
That's the principle of contrast. You can't know what hot is if you don't know what cold is.
Yeah.
So you can't be conscious if there isn't a part that is unconscious. So we are the necessity for the good part of consciousness.
Okay.
But we'll get there. So you're not stuck in the unconscious part forever, fortunately.
Yeah, we're starting to realizing it.
Yeah, we're starting to realizing it and move over to the other side. And there's always a part that is unconscious. The unconscious part is infinite. There's infinite amount of individuals that are unconscious. So, but all the individuals in the unconscious part are moving towards realization and becoming conscious. And then when you have this realization, you understand what you are, that you are actually God, basically a part of God. And you go over to the conscious part, and that part is full of, that's kind of the part of the God's brain that know what it is, if you want to compare it to a brain. Yeah. So they told me this, and the interesting thing then is said that existence is an ongoing rediscovery of the self. And what I meant about that was that in order for God to understand what it is, or he is, it's not a he, but I will use that pronoun because that's commonly used. So I'm going to say he, but I mean it. Yeah. So God needs to understand what he is. And this is the mechanism in which this works. So we always have this unconscious part, which is full of individuals, fragments. They are actually one, but we just don't know about it. In an underlying layer, we are one. Yeah. So, and the unconscious part kind of evolves towards realization, becoming conscious. Yeah. And we slowly move towards this realization through, as they told me in an earlier journey that we talked about already, that you will not be unconscious forever. The conscious part have planned it so that the unconscious part will meet situations, and all the situations we meet are illusory. I mean, it's an illusion created by the conscious part to make the unconscious part conscious.
Yeah, it's everything that we experience is just a way of us coming back to the self.
Yeah, the conscious part have created a kind of movie that will lead us back to what we are. So what we experience as a physical world is actually a kind of a movie screen, an illusion that we think is real. And everything is already scripted so that we will get back. We will encounter situations that will make our consciousness to evolve and slowly understand that there's something more. Yeah. And at one point, we will understand, aha, I am this, I'm a God. Yeah. And then we'll move over to the conscious part. And the interesting thing here, as I said, they told me this: existence is an ongoing rediscovery of the self. An ongoing. Yeah. It's always happening. Because, as I said, consciousness is fragmented into individuals, illusory individuals. There are actually no individuality in reality, but we experience that way. So one day I will become enlightened. I will have my realization, and you will have your realization one day. And so
and all the viewers.
And the viewers, all of them will have the realization.
Yeah.
But not at the same time. And the entire universe is full of individuals all over.
Yeah.
That each of one of them will become conscious at some point. So there are always individuals that are unconscious, and there are always an infinite amount of individuals that are conscious, that have already done their this great discovery of what they are.
I remember one thing that I saw or got explained to me during one experience. I don't know if it was before or after. I think it was after, but
yeah,
it was an explanation to this rediscovery of the self. What they explained it is, imagine if you have a fishing pole.
Yeah.
And you're standing here at your true self of God, the full realized God being. And then you throw yourself away.
Yeah.
And you land somewhere where you don't see your true self anymore.
Way out in the lake.
Yeah, way out in the lake. And then slowly you start wheeling in and coming back to your true self.
Yeah.
You're constantly moving towards your true self.
Yeah.
But then you go out there to that experience and you just slowly move into the new one. And once you're back into the full experience again, you throw it somewhere else.
Yeah.
And a new experience
and wheel it
emerges.
back in.
And you do the same procedure all over again.
And they explained to me what I thought was the most amazing part of this explanation was that since there are an infinite amount of unconscious individuals and also an infinite amount of conscious individuals, there is always some individual somewhere in the universe that is right now realizing what he or she is.
Okay.
That is going from unconscious to conscious.
Mm.
And in that moment, God knows what he is.
Okay.
And this happens in every moment. Right now, someone realizes himself, and now, and now, and now, and now. And they told me this process makes God understand what he is in every moment forever. Because of the fragments realizing what it is. Mm. So each fragment, now an individual realizes self, and now, and now, and now. So God just, okay, I'm this.
Yeah.
So God is constantly understanding himself.
Okay.
Through the process of the fragments realizing what they are.
Yeah, I guess that's necessary because if there's a gap there, it
God
would be a part where he did realize.
God, this one consciousness, must understand what it is in every moment.
Yeah.
And it cannot be a still moment, one moment. Mm. Because if it's not moving, it's not an experience.
Yeah.
A frozen moment is not an experience. You cannot experience a frozen moment.
Yeah.
If there isn't time, is life.
Yeah.
Time is experience. And what is time? Time is movement.
Mm.
So it has to move. That's why it has to be this constant flow. So if God wants to realize what it is, it has to be in a moment, and it has to be in every moment. And this is how he has created the way for himself to understand what he is in every moment. By fragmentizing himself into an infinite amount of fragments and let the half part evolve towards, I'm this. And then you are in the conscious part, but then you'll go back and become unconscious again. So it's a constant circle of going round and round. And there's always one point where there is a constant stream of people or individuals having the aha moment. I'm this. I'm this. I'm this. And this makes God able to realize himself in every moment, understanding himself. And it's so beautiful.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the glimpses we have seen so far tells the story that it will be quite beautiful.
Yeah, and it kind of showed me that this realization is that's what it's all about.
Yeah.
This realization is the most powerful experience you can have. And it's driving force for the whole creation. Because what God's really want is to understand himself. So the aha moment is the peak in a way. When God, in every moment, okay, I'm this. So God is an entity that has to realize himself forever. in this constant movement.
And I think, I mean, we are approaching that moment.
Yeah.
That's where we are now beginning to start that journey towards our realization. And I think once that happens on this planet, who knows when, but I think we have begun the journey.
And when you become conscious, you kind of merge with God, but not actually. On one plane you merge with him, but on another plane you still have an individual experience. But that will gradually fade away, and you will actually merge completely with God in the end, and then you turn back and make the journey all over. Because it has to be this constant movement. And they showed me like 2 spirals meeting, like a cone.
Yeah.
And the tips are meeting, and one cone that is going towards the middle is a physical experience just shrinking towards this realization. In the end, you have no choice but
to step over.
And then you step over, and then you grow towards God.
Then a new spiral begins.
Yeah, then a new spiral, growing spiral. So we're in a
shrinking spiral.
A shrinking spiral. We are contracting towards this. So our choices are getting lesser and lesser. They only at some point, the only choice we have left is to wake up.
Yeah.
Then we wake up and understand what we are. We will evolve towards the perfect state of becoming everything. So when you wake up, you understand what you are, but there's still an evolution towards really becoming it.
Yeah.
100%.
I mean, you're just the beginning of the new spiral.
Yeah.
And you will go into that spiral and just keep growing, and the experience will just be bigger, bigger, bigger.
And that will go on for quite some while.
Yeah.
I mean, time is actually kind of an illusion, so it's hard to talk about time in the spiritual world. But if you want to compare it, the physical spiral started off when we went into the physical as minerals and then became plants.
Yeah.
You know, the whole evolution up towards this point of humanity and then waking up. It will be millions of years in spiritual world evolving and growing and become God. But when you wake up, it's all
peach.
It's all peach and upwards. There's no suffering left. It's just greater and greater experience.
Yeah.
And we're going to talk about what that experience is like in coming episodes, because I have received more information about that as well. But this really, when they told me this, it was so fantastic. And I asked them, well, can't you tell me what I am?
Yeah.
I want to know now. And they said, no, that's the point. You're supposed to figure this out, what you are. We can't give you this aha moment. You have to find it for yourself, because that's when it's the sweetest.
Yeah, that's when you really work towards something. We can relate to that.
Yeah.
I mean, once you put in the effort, you work hours, years, perhaps.
Yeah.
Just put in the work, and when it finally happens, it will be so much sweeter.
Yeah. And we are literally going through hell to get to this. To get to paradise, basically, and hell is the physical world, and we are struggling, and then one day, and just paradise for a long time, basically.
Yeah.
So this information, I was blown away. I was ecstatic for weeks about this information. I'm a sucker for this kind of information.
Yeah,
it's my biggest interest how this works. And they also told me one more thing, that there's another principle built into this system, that those who have woken up will want to share it with those who are just below them.
Yeah.
And, hey guys, you do like this, come on, it's much greater over here. And this principle is all over, in the whole evolution. For instance, when the first human discovered fire, it wasn't like, I'm gonna keep this a secret for myself. It's like, guys, you can burn this stuff and cook food and shit. You get excited when you have made a big discovery and want to share it. And it's the whole way. And this brings those who are a little bit further, will pull the people under them with them to and show, and it works like that all the way. So that's why we're sitting here talking about now as well. Like, guys, you can have this experience with psychedelics. Go and look for yourself, or something like that. And when people are realized, enlightened, they will also, hey, the first thing they want to do is to share it.
I think that's what we touched on the previous episode as well. With historically, it's been just a few number of people who have become enlightened.
Yeah.
Now we're seeing more and more. That will wake up.
Yeah.
And once that happens, these people will lift the others up, and they will become enlightened, and there will be more and more, and it's constantly growing.
Yeah.
As you said, it will pull them up.
Yeah. So it's a kind of pulling principle here that
God
is always pulling these unconscious individuals towards him.
Yeah.
And it's a constant flow. So it's really cool.
Yeah, really cool.
And then after this experience, I lost my connection with the spiritual world.
Yeah.
But you was still connected.
Yeah.
I remembered. And I had another question. But since I didn't have the connection, I asked you if you could ask the spirits what the answer for my question. And I asked you, how much knowledge is there to learn?
Yeah.
Because that had just given me this fantastic piece of information. I felt like, how much can we actually learn? And what did I answer you?
Basically, I remember this. I went into this time and space, and I remember asking, all right, I have a question, and I didn't have a question when I asked this.
Okay.
So I just felt naturally when I'm in this presence, I should ask something.
Yeah.
And they just say, oh, question. Yeah, we have all the answers.
Yeah.
And they showed me a library which just continued into infinity.
Yeah.
And then they say, as long as you have a question, there will always be an answer.
Yeah.
You can ask how many questions you want. There's always going to be an answer.
Yeah.
But themselves, the questions and the answers, are all illusions as well.
Yeah. Because the only thing that is real is the self.
Yeah.
And the self is not these questions, and it's not those answers, basically.
Yeah.
So that's the realization that you will have when you wake up. But I'm stepping ahead now, but during a later experience, they actually told me that you have to understand that there is nothing to understand.
Yeah.
Basically, because you cannot really understand the self. We're going to talk a lot more about this later, so we're not going to dive into this, but they told you that knowledge can grow indefinitely, infinitely, because there's no end to it, because it's all an illusion. We can just start to, you will always have more and more questions. In the end, you will find out, okay, perhaps I need to look somewhere else than outwards. And you go inside and you will find only one truth. There's only one thing that is really true, and that's the self.
Yeah.
And that's not something you can understand with the intellect, as we said in the previous episode. It's a direct experience.
Yeah.
So understanding the self is not an intellectual understanding. It's just an experience.
And that's kind of funny. When I was in this state of awareness, I was there. I was I was in this awareness. At least I would temporarily. I was experiencing it. And there I felt like, okay, so now I'm in this presence. So maybe I should ask some questions. And I didn't know what to answer.
Yeah.
And they just made
and
fun
when
of
you
me.
told me that there's an infinite amount of knowledge, it will only grow as long as you have questions, I was kind of puzzled. What? What I'm telling me has to be, this kind of map or, how it all works. But in a way it is, and in a way it's not. The answers are, you're going to be given answers that will lead you to the thing that cannot have an answer.
Yeah.
So the questions and answers are illusory, but they are absolutely important.
Yeah, they are necessary.
And necessary for you to realize. They told me during the later journey that it's absolutely necessary to go through all of this, asking all these questions and trying to understand, because that will lead you to the point where you realize that there is nothing to understand.
No.
You just have to become. You have to become that which you are seeking.
Yeah,
you cannot understand it.
I usually start thinking sometimes you need to think a lot to understand that you shouldn't think at all.
Yeah.
And that goes also with the contrast of or the principle of contrast.
Yeah.
That you need all this voice in your head
Yeah.
to finally appreciate
Yeah.
the silence.
So basically, a God or the self
Yeah.
cannot be understood. You can only become it and be it.
Mm.
And when you are it, you know what you are.
Yeah.
But it's not an intellectual understanding. So you have to be it. And they all have also talked a lot about how you become this. But that's not for this evening's episode.
Yeah.
And I also had another question, because I couldn't really understand that at that point. I would understand it a few weeks later.
Yeah.
When the next journey took place, and they told me a lot more about this.
Yeah.
But I also asked you to ask spirits about what you had experienced, the previous experience about these colors and
the layers.
the layers, the red, the yellow, and green, and indigo. Why these colors?
Yeah, and basically what I said, I didn't really think about it. I just blurted out the first thing that just came out, and it was because you asked the question.
Yeah. And I wasn't satisfied at all about that answer. Why these colors? Because you have the question, Magnus. And I was like, what?
Yeah.
What the hell is that kind of an answer?
Yeah.
Because I have the question.
Yeah.
And I couldn't understand it, but I would understand it later.
Yeah.
Because of the things we talked about now. And also they would go into this and explain this a little bit more. I think we're going to save that to the next episode, basically.
Yeah. So
perhaps it's going to wrap this up.
Yeah, I think so. So thank you for watching this episode. As always, go to maldorma.com if you want to watch the rest of the episodes. We try to put up as much content as possible.
Yeah, we have videos and the books and a little this and a little that.
Yeah, so be sure to check out Magnus's book, The Illusion.
Yeah, I've written this book called The Illusion, and it's out as a physical book and as a ebook, and it's about all of these experiences, the theories that we are talking about, and it covers basically what we have been talking about and what we are going to talk about. So if you're eager to hear the rest, you can check it out today if you want to. And we also have, as I said, other videos on our YouTube channel, and we're on Instagram and Twitter as well.
Yep. And I have an upcoming book as well, Stepping into the Unknown. As you mentioned, it's the books are pretty much what we talk about in the podcast, but I think if you read the books, you get a little bit more detail, a little bit more better experience of what actually happened. We try to cut it a bit shorter here in the podcast. So if you want to really dig deep into what we have experienced and what we have learned, check out the books.
Yeah, and also if you like what we're doing, please subscribe to our YouTube channel and like us on Facebook and things like that. It really helps.
All right.
Yeah. So
I think that's it.
Yeah.
Thank you for today.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.